Okay, so looking at the drawing here for the boom with the cylinder, what you see in the middle, that is the cable. It runs all the way down the boom, comes up through. This is the end of the cylinder. As you can see, it goes to all this gear on the end, which is going to be the sheave, the guide, and guards. We come back. This is the end where we've got to focus on disassembly. We'll come over here and look at this. So push link, that was removed. Boom link pin. This cover plate's off. So we're going to go ahead and loosen, as it says in the instructions, the cables, and then it says to remove them. And then if you look further here on the cylinder, this here, that's the anti-rotation. It just slides in there, and this is the back of the cylinder, which would be like the pin goes through, as you see in this picture here. That's your boom link pin. So that's the end of the rod. As you can see in here is the cap. What you're seeing here, right there, to the head cap bolts to the barrel. So when we take all these things apart, and then there's 4 bolts that hold this down to that piece there. So once we loosen the cables and pull the tension off, we're going to pull those 4 bolts out of that. And it also says to remove that block and the cables fully, which you're going to see here. It says remove the hardware, securing. It's really good to have all these directions. This is the service manual for this particular serial number machine. So we'll remove the hardware, securing the wire rope adjustment block to the aft end of the base boom. I'm not going to read this. You guys can read it. This is where we're saying we're going to remove the bolt securing the wire rope attach bar, which was that bar that runs across. And then we're going to attempt to pull the telescope cylinder wire ropes partially from aft end of the base boom. And we're going to use a synthetic sling and lifting device at the center of gravity once it gets fully coming out. And then it says here, and place it on a suitable trestle, which will be a support, which will be on the ground. And I'm going to need the whole length of my shop to do this. And this, I'm assuming this whole thing's going to come out. So we're going to, once we get it loose, we'll have to pull the wire ropes back through once we get it out and up into this section. And it's going to come out of the top of that boom. And then we'll pull the wires through. Sounds interesting. I mean, it's I'm not seeing it, how it's going to come out without getting tangled up in this section here, because it's showing it's open through here once we pull that, but we looked in there and it shows that it's not open as it goes through. Like here, those cables come through the bottom in between this little hole here underneath, so it's not like they just lift out of this block. So I'm assuming we're gonna have to push them through, and then when we pull this out, or somehow pull them simultaneously through this opening here, we'll pull them simultaneously straight out. And then once we get to this end, we'll have to figure this block out. Very interesting setup here. It seems like that's going to be the trick. Maybe it should have been open. I don't know. It's just showing a cutout here. But we'll go down there and we'll take a look, and we'll start pulling this stuff apart and just take our time. Last thing we want to do is damage cables. I don't want to have to order those. They look like they're pretty good, but I don't know. Maybe we should. I've got some shiv measuring tools. We can measure them, make sure that they're within spec. So I do have the tools to measure that, to make sure that the wear is within limits. And we'll obviously video that. Yep. Looks pretty interesting. Yep. Anyways, we're going to review this a little bit more and brainstorm it. And we'll go look. Last thing we want to do is damage anything. Okay, so finally getting back around to working on this thing. The last cylinder that's leaking is the telescope cylinder that scopes out and extends the boom, and that cylinder access is in here. It already kind of gotten started before I took the video, but you have to support the boom. So I've got my excavator here and rested the boom on top of that, and that's enough. That actually can lift the front of this. I actually boomed down and raised the front wheels up on the boom. So, but we're actually going to be in a neutral state, because if you actually put any pressure either trying to lift or support the boom, lift the front of the machine, you're going to put pressure on these pins here, and I needed to get that pin out. So basically I just finagled it until I could come over here and shift this piece. I was able to just kind of, once I got it free floating on that pin, I was able to just pull the pin out by hand. So that's the goal here. And we will get inside here and we'll start taking these pins out. That pin right there, so I can get this piece. I'm using the pin just to kind of support this while I get in there. And then we'll start loosening up on these cables. We got to make sure that they don't spin on us, but we'll loosen up on these and then pull these out and relax the cables just a little bit, and then we'll get access to some more bolts in here and pull this back piece off. Once we start sliding that out, we should get access to the head cap on that cylinder, and once we loosen that, then we'll be able to slide the whole rod come out. 140 inches of rod should come out, and I'm gonna hook it up to the forklift there and we'll pull it out, and then I'll support it on this end whenever I start pulling it out. So we'll put a support over here so that when the rod gets to the end, it won't just fall and hit right here and cause damage to it. We don't want to damage it. I'll put wooden blocks in here and whatnot, so that if it does accidentally happen to fall, it's gonna fall on some wood blocks and it won't cause any damage. I'll probably bolt them to this here, and that way they won't have to worry about them coming out. And then we'll get this little seal kit here that I have. This is the original JLG replacement. This is the part number right here, 290-1284. 1285 will be for the actual main boom cylinder, which is inside. I do have one, but it's not leaking, so I'm not gonna mess with it. That one was actually recently rebuilt, I'm assuming, because it's in good shape. So this is going to be the project here as I start getting it. You can see, well, you can't see, but if looking in there, I could actually see it was dripping. So, and you can tell that it's been leaking here. So it's definitely the culprit. We will make some progress, and I'll take some videos in between. I've still yet to get anything to set up and do recording. I should just kind of put this camera on a boom or something, or a tripod, and just record it. But you know, I'm kind of leery of that. Sometimes I tend to, forget about things, and camera would probably be there for 20 hours. Anyway, so I'm going to start making progress on this, following the manual guidelines for removing this telescoping cylinder, and we'll make videos as time goes and progress is made. I'll each step where I get things pulled apart, we'll take a video so you can see how it was done, at least in steps, because the manual doesn't give you any pictures at all. It just tells you rest the boom and pull the end off and take all the pieces out. So yeah, there's no pictures at all. Just shows a picture of a level boom being supported like that. Anyway, but if you're a service tech, you're probably working around people that have done it before or have had factory training. So I hadn't seen it before. There's no videos on it anywhere. Anyways, okay, so we took about a minute or whatever. So we've got that pin. We basically pushed it out this way because the safety retention pin was on this side, and it bolted in on the bottom, as you saw earlier. Now what you have to do is you have to push it out just a little bit, then rotate it so you can pull the safety pin out, which is one of those. And basically I pushed it all the way through with the drift, because you got to go slightly into that and actually come out so you can actually get this piece out right here. And when it come out on that end, this is actually upside down compared to being on the machine, so we pushed it out so I can slide that out. And then I ended up just pushing it back in because it was sticking out through slightly in this hole right there, in that slot. So that would restrict us from being able to slide this back piece out. It's gonna be a little fun for sure. So now I'm gonna have to loosen up the tension on these. We got to put back up on the swedge on the cable that actually has notches, so you can put a wrench on it. You don't want to just go turning these. It'll actually start spinning the cable, and that's not good. You'll damage the cable. The cables look good because they're covered in oil, obviously, so there's no rust on them. From down on this end, I'm gonna get a friend of mine that's got a bore scope. We'll drop it down in there and see if we can look better at the shivs. See if we got to pull the boom apart and change those cables, which I'm hoping not. I'm hoping they're still in good shape because they've been retracted and covered in oil for a little while. We'll see, and that'll be another day. But anyways, I may be able to see a little better once I pull this back piece off. I can look down in there with a flashlight. And I know it sounds kind of crazy, but maybe some binoculars. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pull these hoses off, and we'll cap the hoses, and then probably leave the put a little cap but not tighten it on the fittings. And then when we start to pull this out, it is a safety valve. I may have to pop it loose so that it'll allow it to breathe, because it's supposed to actually keep that cylinder from functioning if you blow a hose out. So may have to do some. I'll look back in the manual and double check to make sure. I think it should just come out, but we'll take a look. I think they say you can actually take. If you can't really see it from this view, but if you look on the top and you look down in there, which you're not going to be able to see it, but I'll show you on the drawing. We're going to go look at that here in a minute, and I'll show you. But it actually locks in to keep the cylinder from rotating. It's basically got two ears that come out on the sides of the cylinder, and that actually goes in and locks in, and then the head cap is there, so that actually holds the cylinder in place and keeps it anti-rotation, and it actually is the back plate. So it's, instead of having a pin, it's actually just locked in there on those dog ears, but they're pretty heavy, thick. But anyways, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get the manual and look at it just to make sure, double check and read to make sure that I don't have to do anything special other than holding back up on the swedge where it's got the notches for wrenches. and double check to make sure. I don't want to damage those, because that would put the lift out of service for a long time if I have to change those cables. Anyway, so we're gonna go look at that, and I'll take the phone, we'll record that, and we'll get back over here and make progress. Okay, so we've got everything rigged up. Pulled the lines off. I've got a strap around that pin to pull it out. I got to pull that bolt and that bolt out, but I'm gonna slide it back just a little bit more to where it's sitting a little bit right here closer, and then hopefully it won't fall down there. So the parts that we needed to take apart are in here. So you can see that's the wing there, the anti-rotation, and the stop. So you see those two holes there on that side and on that side, and then the cavity. So these blocks go in there with them bolts and those spacers. The spacers are to the back of the machine, so the blocks go in, and they're against that there on the forward side, and then on this back side you're going to put these spacers in, and these are threaded, okay, and then the spacers will go in like this to the back of the machine, so they will be in there like this. Put this piece in, that piece in first, and this one in afterwards, and obviously removal, you're going to be able to pull that one out first and then get to that one, because you got to take your finger and get it in there, and you'll get those out. It's again 9/16. Now, one of the tricks that I didn't have it set up for is I had to reposition. You actually got to get yourself enough space in here, so you got to extend this rod enough so you can get your tools in there. So I got a ratchet in there to break them loose, and then use the air ratchet to get them out, which come out pretty quick, easy. So now that boom's gonna want to slide, that rod's gonna want to, the whole cylinder I should say, it's gonna come out, and then we're gonna pull it with the forklift. And since I'm gonna keep the whole cylinder together, the whole thing's gonna come out. I don't really need to put anything here, but I will put some chafing gear just to keep it so it doesn't scratch the paint right here. And we're going to pull it just a little bit, and then I'll get that out, and then slide this piece out, and I will get those off, and that way whenever I pull them out, they'll come out together, maybe, hopefully, I don't know, we'll see. According to the directions, that's how it's supposed to go. It's like, I don't know. We'll see how it goes, and I'll make changes according to how it's going. I'll get these to the last two guys out, and then we'll make progress. Got it hooked up to the forklift. We'll pull it out, and then I'll get it supported. And when I get it to this end, I'll get a support and brace it up, and then we'll lower it down, and then I'll pull the rod out. Anyways, so that's pretty much it. It's taking me a while because I got to go back and forth. I don't have any mechanics tools in my machine shop. They're all machining tools and big wrenches, so all my other tools are in the other garage. So that's the seal that's leaking. It's gone and pours out. So anyways, we'll make some progress. We got everything capped and out of the way. I will replace this hose. You can see it's rusted. You know, we're going to put that back on there. All right. Okay, so we've got it out. The wire actually looks really good. It's just got a little bit of surface corrosion here. I can treat that and grease it, and we should be good. There's no frays, no kinks, no broken strands. Inspected that whole wire when it came out. So this gave me a little trouble here right when I got to the last, right there, last 2 or 3 feet. So you remember all them rats that like to live in here? Well, to about where that leaf is right there, all the way up to this. You see those blocks right there where that wire runs. Well, about halfway up this boom, all the way to where that leaf was, all the nest they made was in there, and it was so packed I couldn't pull it out. So I had to push it back in and then get a vacuum and slowly vacuum all the leaves and rat nest out. So you can see a little bit right there, but yeah, all their nest pieces, and then I vacuumed out pretty much all of it. It took me a while. But once I vacuumed it out, it wasn't too bad. I took my time and lifted it up and put a block right here and put it underneath the cylinder and slid it on out, and she came out pretty easy. Once I did is I backed it all the way out to about right here, right there, and set the other end down on the deck, and came up beside with the forklift and tied this strap on and lifted it up over that, backed up a little bit and set it down right there. So when I go to pull the rod out, I'm gonna lift up and support this cylinder and make it where it's sitting level, and then I'm gonna actually do just that right there, and I'm gonna anchor it to the machine right there, and then I will bust this cap off and we'll slowly back this rod out, and yeah, we'll go ahead and rebuild the cylinder. Kind of stoked. It was just as simple as they said. It's just a matter of getting the stuff spaced out right, and you can see where those pieces were the I called it an anti-roll piece, but it was actually what secures it in the bottom of the cylinder. So it goes in there, and then pull those 4 bolts out, pull that out, and then up top there you see that bolt to the left and that one to the right. That was actually where a cable block went, which was that cable. So that cable goes up in there, and it that's where it secures the cable. So as you extend out, it starts pushing the whole boom out together. As you see, it's tied in with these cables here. They tie into the fly boom and to the middle boom, and then it slides out on the main boom. So as you start extending the cylinder, it actually starts extending both the middle and fly boom at the same time. So it's really neat design. Anyways, so yeah, looks good. The oil preserved the wire rope, so that's a good thing. I may order them. I don't know. We'll look tonight and see. But for the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and start pulling this, get this blocked up and level, and then anchor it and start pulling it out. So yeah, success on removal of the telescoping cylinder. All right. All right, so we've got the cylinder rod pulled out. Just ease it on out, pull it out with the forklift, and the rod looks pretty good. So we get down here to the end as to how this thing works. As you can see, it actually puts fluid through the center of it to get to the back side of this piston, and then that's actually what puts pressure on this side, pushing the rod out of the barrel. And then on this side, I believe there is a hole 2 holes that run through there, if I'm not mistaken. Right there. Second hole. And that actually puts fluid on the back side of this, pushing it in this way, and actually retracting the cylinder rod. So that is why these are very expensive, because machine work to basically run 2 ports, 2 lines all the way down the inside of that rod back over to there, and welded to this guy, lined up, those 2 holes line up, and that's how your fluid works. So that way you don't have to have, because this actually moves up and down, the rod stays stationary. So that's how this thing works. It's pretty cool. Anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and get this bushing off. It's just like the other ones. You just take it out, and then yeah, again, I don't have my tools over here, so I'm just gonna poor boy it right now. I'll have a 7/16 socket maybe. Anyway, so we're gonna take this bushing and we're gonna press it off, and then take this end off, and we'll take a little picture or video of that, what it looks like when it's off. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. All right, so just like the other ones, it's threaded on, and it's got a seal on the inside of this that seals around here. It's pretty simple. Got that collar off, and we have our seal kit here, one that I showed you earlier. And so we'll go ahead and pull out those inner seals, the bushings, and the seal right here, and we'll pull out these bushings and dust seal and inner seal there, and obviously the seal here with the backup. So we'll get these all swapped out and cleaned up, or pulled all off, and then we'll clean them up and then put the new ones on, and then we will go back to reassembly. So pretty simple. All right, good morning. So we've got our rod back in, cap on. In order to put it in, there's a plug that goes in on the bottom here, and I went ahead and opened that up when I pulled it and whenever I put it in. That way it didn't create a vacuum or suction because of the safety valve. And then I had a kiddie pool underneath here to catch all the hydraulic oil that came out when I pulled it out. And when I put it back in, didn't have to go about doing all of that. So here we are. We're about to torque the head cap on, and it calls for 50 foot-pounds of torque. So I'm going to go ahead and torque that, and then once I get it torqued, I'm going to flip this whole thing over upside down, and I'm going to put as much hydraulic oil as I can. Probably not much, probably maybe a half a gallon in that end. And then there is a cap on this end on the bottom side as well. I can put some in there. It's not necessary, but at least on that end I'm going to put a little bit. Actually, you know what? Probably not, because I did push out. There's a bunch in there. I'd poured in there before I put the rod in. So we've got enough oil in there. Everything's oiled really well, and once we start functioning it, it'll push the air out, and we'll just have to monitor the level on the hydraulic on the tank. So here's the torque wrench I'm going to use. This let's see here, See if I can get in the light so we can see. Yeah, don't want to focus, eh? There we go. Nope. Yeah, there we go. So 50 foot-pounds is, yeah, let me turn it that way. 50 foot-pounds is our goal, and this wrench is well within that. It's a Jet brand. I use that in Proto for my torque wrenches, and I have a small Craftsman. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to torque this up. And let's see if I can set this here so we can see. Don't really know where to set this thing. See, it's one of the deals. Don't really have anything that works. Okay. Alright. Well, we're not going to video that because I have nowhere to set this thing. Alright, so we've got the head cap torqued. I went ahead and marked each one. That way I could keep track of where I was at. Torquing in a pattern going from opposite to opposite, just like you would in anything else. You go back and forth. You don't want to tighten in a circle going all the way around because you'll torque it out around and it'll actually cause it to leak. So I've got this plug that I'm going to put back in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that O-ring. This is that plug that was on the bottom there over here, which I'd use to drain the fluid and allow it to breathe so it wouldn't create a vacuum. So one of the things is, once you pull something out like this, you want to put a new O-ring in. So I'm going to go grab a new O-ring. I have a kit from Parker Hydraulics, and I have all the sizes that I need. But I'm going to replace that O-ring because it's, you know, it's stiff. And the last thing I want to do is put this all back together and that seal leak. I actually saw a machine that was leaking and they had to pull the cylinder out just to replace this. So we don't want to be that guy. So I'm going to replace these. Anyways, so we'll get that put in there and then we'll start putting this up. Maybe I'll grab something to hold this camera so I can actually video that process. Okay, so I used the sling, picked up that end and set it up there. I'm going to go ahead and back up. I'm going to grab this sling right here. We're going to go ahead and start putting this in there. I figured try to video this.